Hello everyone, I'm Forrest McFreelova, and this is Speedplay France and Hearts of Iron 4, number 7. We left off having just cut off the entire western front, encircling a vast number of German forces. I was going to say a vast majority, but I don't actually know that at all. At any rate, though, the British are containing them from the north, we're containing them from the south. We've even got this smaller pocket over in part of the Maginot Line, which we managed to encircle before taking back. And yeah, right now what we're going to do is just start working on expanding outwards from that thrust, and also just reducing the pockets that we have, hopefully just destroying all of these German forces. I'm not entirely sure how supplies work in this game, whether or not they have to be connected to the capital. There we go, that pocket is gone. We've retaken part of the Maginot Line. In previous games, Hearts of Iron 3 and before, I believe you had to have a direct line from the capital through provinces in order to get supplies. I'm not sure if that's how it works in this game. For instance, Strasbourg held out for a very long time despite not having supplies. So perhaps supplies are just produced in various areas. I'm not really sure how that works. So the important thing is we're going to just, one, cut this pocket off from the sea in case they're getting sea routes to bring supplies to them. We're also going to try to not enclose them from British-controlled territories because I want to take control over the areas, not allow the British control over them. The reason for that is I'm not sure when Nazi Germany is defeated whether or not it will end the war or if the war will keep going. If it ends the war, then it doesn't matter what the British get because we'll just take what we want in a peace conference and just kind of see where the lines end up getting drawn. However, if when the war ends, or when, Nazi Germany is defeated, the war continues, then it's going to matter a lot who controls what territory, as that's going to have de facto control over all of the factories and whatnot of the territory. So we're going to just try to take direct control for ourselves. You'll notice that the German line is just really collapsing now, which is fantastic. We're even managing to cut them off a second time, so now it's two smaller pockets. We have cut them off from the coast, so if they were getting supplies, now they're no longer able to, which is pretty great. And this whole area hopefully we'll just be able to reduce and destroy with some relative ease. We'll see just how well it actually ends up going, although I am fairly confident that it will be able to be destroyed pretty quickly. They are moving up to the coast over in the Netherlands, which is worrying. However, everywhere else they're just kind of being brought to more or less rapid collapse, which is great. So yeah, we have done quite a bit of damage to the German military with this. We're attacking Frankfurt right now. It's a major city that'll hopefully become a very nice addition to the French Empire pretty soon. Or I guess Vichy France, which is a name that kind of bothers me. At any rate, though, we are doing definitely just very well. There are some areas that are fortifications that are going to slow us down a bit for just reconquering them, such as Metz. Everywhere else, though, you'll notice that this whole pocket is just being reduced rapidly and will hopefully just be brought just to pieces. All of the troops here will hopefully just be defeated pretty soon, and then we'll be able to take this massive amount of troops, some areas we're already taking them, and just bring them over to the new front pushed considerably further east. Now there is a bit of an issue fighting for this one Maginot province. We are going to take the majority of our forces away from it and just fully surround the area, and now begin just assaulting our way over to Berlin. We do hopefully want to just be able to end that little pocket, but there's no reason to slow down. The British are probably going to take the initiative if we don't. So we go ahead and attack that Maginot province, and now the rest of our forces are just going to charge forward more or less with reckless abandon into what remains of the German state. They weren't able to defend against us when they had their entire army. Now that at least a third of it has been destroyed, they should conceivably do much worse at defending themselves. I mean, it just makes sense. So we go ahead and just attempt a breakout, which is going very well. We can't actually take Limpez or Leipzig, as they do have defenders there, and we are a bit further ahead than we could actually reach. Nuremberg, though, notably enough, just got seized after being pushed behind the lines, and we're just going to keep gunning it as far as we can. The general thrust of our offensive appears to be directed more or less towards Berlin. I say appears to be because that wasn't really the target. The target was more or less just getting all of our forces freed from the old Western Front over to the new Western Front. I guess really only front at this point. And yeah, Berlin is a good place to go. It's an obvious target. Another reason to just charge up to the Baltic is to cut off the British so that they can't take any more control of any further German territories. That way, if the war doesn't end upon their capitulation, we will really just still be able to move forward. We also get a big group of new motorized units, which is quite nice, and we're just kind of gunning it forward throughout the German countryside. Now, really, I'm not sure if we will be slowed down, if we can just keep gunning it more or less with reckless abandon. At this point, we have just a weirdly large number of more or less conflicting commands. None of our 3 armies, we have 4 actual armies, but none of the 3 that are on the front are really organized geographically whatsoever. So it's probably just some sort of terrible mess of command and control right now. Although it really doesn't matter all that much, since I can only assume the British, not the British, well, the British are there, probably in a similar position, but more importantly, the Germans are probably also in a pretty disorganized state right now. As you can imagine, any country that's half occupied out of nowhere would probably be. Now, it is winter right now, more or less. It's February, so near the end of winter, and we are still making rapid gains. Now, we'll have to see what happens when summer comes along, if we'll be able to make even quicker gains, what will happen. Maybe they won't even make it to spring and summer and all of that. Ultimately, though, we are driving towards Berlin, just driving really everywhere. We are getting the vast majority of their territories. You'll notice areas such as Munich in the south aren't really being battled for right now. Now, we are just really trying to just break Germany. That is really just all I can say. Now, some areas are defending themselves rather well, which is a bit worrying. You'll notice that most of the southern portion of the line has kind of just stagnated, and hopefully we'll be able to avoid further stagnation as we move forward. It looks as though we are making a second breakout in Dresden or near Dresden. Munich hopefully will be surrounded relatively soon. And we are still making some small breakouts. Our armies aren't really very well organized at this point, and we are just kind of hoping to generally just have more forces better organized throughout the whole front line. So this is something completely different, this whole front conflict. Previously, we were making just concerted efforts on small portions of the front, and the shift to just overall full front combat, you'll notice, is having a lot of battles not going nearly so well for us as previously. We also go ahead and switched out our motorized for mechanized forces. Now, I'm not sure if we'll be able to use motorized equipment for that, first of all, before switching to mechanized. I'm not actually sure how that works. We may have just really devastated the functionality of our motorized corps, which admittedly would probably, if that is the case, not have been the best time to do that, since we are nearing on Berlin and hopefully just about to draw the war to a close, so it may have been in our best interest to just keep the motorized units until the Germans fell. At any rate, though, we've already basically committed to it, and it will make our army more functional and relevant as really just time progresses, since Germany and the Axis is not our ultimate goal. We're ultimately trying to conquer the world, if that is even remotely feasible, which I think it may very well be, depending on how bloody this final portion of the war is. An interesting historical note is that I believe it was the last year of World War I was the single bloodiest year for the Allies as they were making advances and, actually being the ones attacking. We also do manage to take Berlin. I accidentally closed that pop-up immediately, though, just because I was very worried about micromanaging the armies. But yeah, we just took Berlin, the capital of the German Reich. They have moved their capital over to Hamburg now, which is worryingly close to the British, who may very well seize it. And if we're lucky, we may even be able to press all the way up to the Baltic Sea and just encircle a whole other portion of the German military. They have annexed Poland and Austria, which adds them to their core territory since it was a different war, meaning that we may have to push our way all the way into Poland before we actually manage to get the Germans to capitulate. Places like Czechoslovakia, which are kind of just difficult to enter due to the mountains anyway, are occupied territories, and thus I don't believe work towards their victory points needed for them to capitulate. So there's really two general thrusts we should be making. One is a southern thrust over to Vienna, which is worth 30 victory points, and another thrust just over into Poland in order to take all of the Polish areas which they have cored. Another thrust, a third thrust of those two thrusts I said we would do, is potentially up to Hamburg, although ultimately, really it's just kind of questionably feasible if we can even pull off all of those thrusts simultaneously. The plan of just general front-wide action kind of hit a wall when we hit the mountains around Czechoslovakia, so that's potentially not really something that we'll be able to do. The front seems to be calming down as we've reached more natural defensive positions. We can probably start pulling forces over to various more active areas, and generally just attempt to assault territories and hope for the best with our forces, as we've gotten quite a ways into Germany for the front to just be settling down. It seems almost counterintuitive that it would, and we are pressing north fairly rapidly, so we might even be able to pocket some units. Down in the south, though, the front is kind of just stagnating. Over in the north, though, we did manage to nearly pocket those forces. If we're able to break out, and there we go, we have pocketed those units, which is pretty great. We're just going to reduce and destroy that pocket and hopefully expand from there, pull forces away from the more stagnant elements of the front and move them to more mobile areas. That is at least the goal. Now, we don't really want to press too close to the British lines, as we don't want to free up British units to go take more of Germany that we want for ourselves. Luckily, though, up in the north, the front line does seem to be fairly mobile. Down in the south, near Austria, well, I guess just in Austria, we are trying again at something of a more concerted offensive. Hopefully that will work. Up in the north, we're getting more stagnant. Down in the Italian front, more stagnation. Now, I'm not sure if Hamburg is the center of all German supplies right now. They can probably convoy things over to the rest of their country, though. We aren't quite able to press forward in that Italian region, although it really does look as though we should be able to. And up in the north, we've more or less stagnated. We attack Dresden again, and we are pressing forward south of Czechoslovakia, and hopefully just around Salzburg. If we're quite lucky, we may be able to just pocket this whole region, although it remains to be seen whether or not we can. We did try to charge over towards Vienna, however it just weakened our line a bit too much. That group of units is now encircled, which is terribly bad, and we have to pull that one unit back. The battle is not going very well defending our armored units, which is less than great, especially because we are at a very small number of armored units compared to what we want. Luckily, we're just launching a general attack. If we take Salzburg, which it looks like we're about to, we'll be in a good spot. We also keep attacking up north. There we go. We've got Salzburg. Those units can now be supplied. It really limits the amount of troops we can pocket, though, which is sad. We're also trying to press towards Hamburg. And if we can just pocket these forces, we'd be in a great spot. And, alright, so I believe at this point the Germans are 21% in control of their victory points and need to be brought below 11, or below 10% in order to capitulate. I'm not sure if taking Hamburg and Vienna would be enough to do that. However, I'm willing to try and find out. In worst cases, the war takes longer than it otherwise is supposed to. Now, we are bordering Hamburg, which is great news. Weirdly enough, the British have not managed to take it. All of our combined armies down in the south aren't really able to push forward anymore for no discernible reason. Hopefully we will be able to break through. However, it doesn't look as though we'll be able to pocket those forces. We are battling. We've taken Stettin, which is great. Hopefully we can just start charging out from around that, although we don't have any mobile units up there. And the German Reich is very close to capitulation. They're just not quite ready to do so just yet. We are still driving forward in various bits of terrain, trying to press towards Vienna, trying to press towards Hamburg, just at this point desperately attempting to get the Germans to capitulate. However, I'm afraid it's not going to happen this episode. We've lost 400-something thousand men, which is just terribly high compared to previous just episodes. The Germans, however, have lost something like 800,000 men, and the other Axis members are losing considerable numbers as well. This is, however, the most deadly episode for the French army thus far. Thank you very much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. Have a great day.